A letter from a divorced woman. A story of love, loss, and lessons learned. Part 1. The beginning. Chapter 1. The woman I used to be. The morning light crept through the thin curtains of my studio apartment in Portland, Oregon. Rain tapped against the window like a familiar old song, the kind that never quite leaves you. I sat at my small kitchen table, a cup of cold coffee untouched before me, staring at the photograph I held in my trembling hands. It was taken 16 years ago, on my wedding day. I was 23 years old, radiant in white lace, my auburn hair swept up in an elegant twist, my green eyes sparkling with dreams I didn't yet understand. My name is Jennifer Matthews. I am 39 years old, and this is my confession. I turned the photograph over, unable to bear the innocence in my younger self's eyes. If only I could reach back through time and whisper a warning to that girl. If only I could tell her that the freedom she craved will become the very prison that would destroy her. But time doesn't work that way. And now, 3 years after walking away from everything I had built, I sit alone in this cramped apartment, surrounded by silence, drowning in regret. Let me take you back to where it all began. Chapter 2. A Young Bride's Dream. 16 years earlier, Boston, Massachusetts. The historic church in Beacon Hill was filled with the soft melody of a string quartet. 200 guests had gathered to witness the union between myself and Michael Harrison, a man I had known for only 2 years, but loved with the fierce intensity of youth. "Jennifer, honey, stop fidgeting," my mother said, adjusting my veil for the 100th time. "You look absolutely beautiful." "Mom, I'm so nervous," I'd admitted, looking at my reflection in the antique mirror of the bridal suite. The young woman staring back at me seemed like a stranger, too young to be making such a permanent decision. "Every bride gets nervous," my mother replied, her gentle hands warm on my shoulders. She was a woman who had been married for 32 years, who had weathered storms I couldn't even imagine. "But remember what I told you. Marriage isn't just about the butterflies. It's about commitment, patience, and choosing your husband every single day, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard." I nodded, but her words barely registered. At 23, fresh out of college with a communications degree and a heart full of romance novels, I thought I knew everything. I thought love was enough. I thought the butterflies in my stomach would last forever. How devastatingly wrong I was. Michael was waiting for me at the altar, his face breaking into that crooked smile that had captured my heart at a college party 2 years earlier. He was handsome in his classic black tuxedo, his dark hair neatly combed, his brown eyes filled with a love so pure and steady, it almost frightened me. He was 28, already making a name for himself as an architect at a prestigious Boston firm, and he had chosen me, plain, ordinary Jennifer from a middle-class family in Connecticut, out of all the women who had wanted him. "You are the most beautiful woman I have ever seen," he whispered as I reached his side, his voice thick with emotion. I smiled, believing with my whole heart that this moment, this feeling, would be enough to sustain us through anything life could throw our way. Chapter 3. The First Years. Our first home was a charming 2-bedroom apartment in Cambridge, just a short walk from Harvard Square. It wasn't much. The kitchen was tiny, the heating was unreliable, and the neighbors upstairs had a habit of playing loud music on weekends. But Michael worked hard to make it our haven. He would come home every evening, tired from long hours at the drafting table, but always with a smile for me and often with flowers he'd picked up from the corner store. "How was your day, sweetheart?" he would ask, pulling me into his arms, smelling of coffee and the faint cedar scent of his cologne. In those early days, I was content. We would cook dinner together. Michael made the best spaghetti carbonara, laugh at sitcom reruns, and dream about our future. Michael spoke of the house he would design for us someday, the children we would have, the life we would build brick by brick. But even then, in those honey-sweet first years, there were whispers of restlessness in my heart. I had married young, moving directly from my parents' home in Connecticut to college dorms and then straight into my husband's life. I had never lived alone, never truly experienced the world on my own terms, never known what it meant to be completely, utterly free. "Jenny, you seem a little distant lately," Michael observed one evening, about a year into our marriage. We were curled up on our secondhand couch, a romantic comedy playing on the television that neither of us was really watching. "Is something wrong?" "No, honey, I'm fine," I lied, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach my eyes. "Just tired from work." But I wasn't tired. I was suffocating. The walls of our apartment felt like they were closing in on me. The routine of going to my entry-level marketing job, coming home, cooking dinner, and waiting for my husband felt like a life sentence I hadn't agreed to. I didn't understand then that this restlessness wasn't about Michael or our marriage. It was about me, about my own immaturity, my inability to find contentment in the beautiful life I had been given, my hunger for something I couldn't even name. Chapter 4. Motherhood. Our first son, Ethan, arrived 2 years after our wedding on a snowy December morning that turned the world outside Massachusetts General Hospital into a winter wonderland. I remember holding him for the first time, this tiny, perfect being with Michael's dark hair and my green eyes, and feeling a love so overwhelming it brought tears streaming down my face. "He's perfect," Michael said, his voice cracking with emotion as he gazed at our son. "You're amazing, Jenny. You did this." For a while, motherhood filled the void in my heart. I threw myself into caring for Ethan, finding purpose in his every need, his every milestone. Michael was a devoted father from day one, coming home early whenever he could, changing diapers without complaint, and walking the floor with our son at 3 in the morning when he wouldn't sleep. 2 years later, our second son, Lucas, was born, a chubby, cheerful baby who rarely cried and seemed to find joy in everything. And 2 years after that, our daughter, Emma, completed our family. She was a surprise, unplanned but deeply wanted, with golden curls and a smile that could light up the darkest room. By the time I was 31, I had 3 beautiful children. Ethan was 6 and starting first grade. Lucas was 4 and in preschool, and Emma was 2, toddling around our new home in the suburbs of Seattle, where Michael's career had taken us. Yes, Seattle. Michael had received an incredible job offer from a major firm there, partner track, significant salary increase, the chance to work on landmark projects. We had left Boston behind and started fresh in the Pacific Northwest, in a beautiful 4-bedroom colonial with a wraparound porch and a backyard big enough for the children to play in. Our family was complete, and Michael had worked his way up to become one of the youngest senior architects at his firm. We'd hired a nanny, a sweet young woman named Sophie from the local college, to help with Emma while I navigated the chaos of school pickups and activities. From the outside, my life looked perfect. A successful husband who adored me, 3 beautiful, healthy children, a comfortable home in a nice neighborhood with good schools. What more could any woman possibly want? But inside, the restlessness that had plagued me since our wedding day had never truly left. It had only been sleeping, waiting like a coiled snake for the right moment to wake up and destroy everything I held dear. Chapter 5. The freedom I craved. With Ethan and Lucas in school full days and Emma under Sophie's capable care, I suddenly found myself with something I hadn't had in years: time. "You should get out more, honey," Michael encouraged one Saturday morning over breakfast. He was flipping pancakes, a weekend tradition that the kids loved. "See your friends, join a book club, go shopping. You've been so focused on the kids for so long. You deserve some time for yourself." He meant well. He always meant well. But his words were like opening a door that I should have kept firmly shut. At first, I was responsible. I would meet my neighbor Rebecca for coffee, browse the boutiques in downtown Seattle, maybe catch a yoga class. I would always return home in time to help with dinner, to read bedtime stories, to be the wife and mother everyone expected me to be. But gradually, the outings became longer, the company more varied. I met Vanessa at an upscale hair salon in Bellevue. She was everything I wasn't: single at 35, glamorous in a way that seemed effortless, and unapologetically free. She drove a red BMW convertible, wore designer clothes that cost more than my monthly grocery budget, and seemed to answer to absolutely no one. "Girl, you need to live a little," she said over martinis one afternoon, her perfectly manicured nails tapping against her glass. "You got married so young. Don't you ever wonder what you missed?" "I love my husband," I said, but the words sounded hollow, even to my own ears. Vanessa laughed, a throaty sound that turned heads across the bar. "Love is nice, sweetie, but it's not everything. Look at me. I've got my own money, my own condo downtown, my own life. No man telling me what to do or where to be or when to be home. That's freedom." I went home that night and looked at Michael differently. He was watching a basketball game, his feet up on the coffee table, a beer in his hand. He had gained weight over the years, the stress of his job, the comfort of married life, and there were strands of gray appearing at his temples. When had he become so ordinary? "How was your day?" he asked without looking away from the screen. "Fine," I replied curtly, walking past him to the bedroom. I lay awake that night, Vanessa's words echoing in my mind like a siren song. Don't you ever wonder what you missed? Chapter 6. The Shopping Mall. It was an ordinary Tuesday evening in late March. The Seattle rain had finally stopped, and the city felt washed clean, sparkling under a rare glimpse of sun. I had dropped the children at my mother-in-law's house for a sleepover. Michael's mother, Patricia, adored her grandchildren and jumped at any chance to spoil them, and decided to do some shopping at the upscale mall in Bellevue. The mall was moderately busy, filled with the buzz of after-work shoppers and the smell of fresh pretzels from the food court. I wandered through the aisles of Nordstrom, picking up items I didn't really need: a silk scarf, a new lipstick, a cashmere sweater in a shade of blue that matched my eyes, enjoying the simple pleasure of being alone with my thoughts. I was reaching for a bottle of perfume on the top shelf of the fragrance counter when I felt it. A gentle touch on my lower back, warm and deliberate, sending an unexpected shiver down my spine. "Let me get that for you," a voice said from behind me. I turned and found myself face to face with the most beautiful man I had ever seen. He was tall, well over 6 feet, with the kind of chiseled features you usually only see in magazine advertisements. His hair was dark and artfully tousled, his jaw sharp enough to cut glass, and his eyes, his eyes were the color of the Caribbean Sea I had seen in travel brochures, but never visited. "Thank you," I managed to say as he reached up effortlessly and handed me the perfume. "My pleasure," he said, his eyes traveling slowly over my face in a way that made me feel like the only woman in the entire store. "I'm Marcus Reynolds." "Jennifer," I replied, suddenly painfully aware of my racing heart. "Jenny." "Jenny," he repeated, as if tasting my name. "That's beautiful. It suits you." We talked for nearly an hour, standing right there at the fragrance counter, completely oblivious to the sales associates and other shoppers moving around us. Marcus was charming in a way that felt almost dangerous, attentive, eloquent, and seemingly genuinely interested in everything I had to say. He asked about my life, my dreams, my secret fears. He listened as if my words were the most fascinating things he had ever heard. He told me he was in finance, something about investment banking and portfolio management that I didn't fully understand, but sounded incredibly impressive. He had moved to Seattle recently from New York, he said, looking for a change of pace and new opportunities. "Your husband is a very lucky man," he said as I finally gathered my shopping bags to leave. "Thank you," I said, the mention of Michael sending a flutter of guilt through my stomach. "At least let me pay for your purchases," Marcus insisted, reaching for his wallet. "Consider it an apology for monopolizing so much of your precious time." I should have said no. I should have smiled politely and walked away. I should have gone home to my husband and children and counted my blessings. But I didn't. Marcus paid for everything, over $400 worth of items I didn't need. Then he walked me to my car in the parking garage, his hand resting lightly, possessively on the small of my back. "It was wonderful meeting you, Jenny," he said, opening my car door like a perfect gentleman. His eyes held mine, and I felt something electric pass between us. "I very much hope I see you again." As I drove away, I could still feel the warmth of his hands on my back, the intensity of his gaze. And I knew, deep in the most honest part of my heart, that something dangerous had begun. Chapter 7. The Text Message. For 2 days, I couldn't stop thinking about Marcus. His face haunted my dreams, his voice echoed in my ears during the most mundane moments. While making breakfast, while helping Lucas with his homework, while lying next to Michael in bed. I found myself replaying our conversation over and over, analyzing every word, every glance, every accidental touch. Michael noticed my distraction. "Jenny, are you feeling okay?" he asked over breakfast Wednesday morning, looking up from his tablet where he was reviewing some architectural plans. "You seem a million miles away." "I'm fine," I said quickly, forcing a smile. "Just tired. Emma was up in the night." "Was she? I didn't hear anything." "You sleep like the dead," I said, deflecting. "It was nothing. Bad dream." But I wasn't tired, and Emma had slept through the night. I was alive in a way I hadn't felt in years. Every nerve ending singing with electricity I had almost forgotten existed. And when my phone buzzed that afternoon with a message from an unknown number, I knew before I even looked at the screen who it was. "Hello, beautiful. It's Marcus from Nordstrom. I hope you don't mind. I got your number from a mutual acquaintance. I can't stop thinking about our conversation. Would you like to meet for coffee sometime?" I didn't question how he got my number. I didn't think about how strange it was that this mutual acquaintance had never been mentioned. I didn't see any of the red flags that, looking back now, were waving so obviously in front of my face. Instead, I typed back, "I'd love that. When?" We met the next day at a quiet cafe in a part of the city I never visited, far from anyone who might know me. Marcus was already there when I arrived, impossibly handsome in a tailored charcoal suit, a single red rose lying on the table beside his espresso. Chapter 7. The Text Message. For 2 days, I couldn't stop thinking about Marcus. His face haunted my dreams, his voice echoed in my ears during the most mundane moments, while making breakfast, while helping Lucas with his homework, while lying next to Michael in bed. I found myself replaying our conversation over and over, analyzing every word, every glance, every accidental touch. Michael noticed my distraction. "Jenny, are you feeling okay?" he asked over breakfast Wednesday morning, looking up from his tablet where he was reviewing some architectural plans. "You seem a million miles away." "I'm fine," I said quickly, forcing a smile. "Just tired." Emma was up in the night. "Was she? I didn't hear anything." "You sleep like the dead," I said, deflecting. "It was nothing. Bad dream." But I wasn't tired, and Emma had slept through the night. I was alive in a way I hadn't felt in years. Every nerve ending singing with electricity I had almost forgotten existed. And when my phone buzzed that afternoon with a message from an unknown number, I knew before I even looked at the screen who it was. "Hello, beautiful. It's Marcus from Nordstrom. I hope you don't mind. I got your number from a mutual acquaintance. I can't stop thinking about our conversation. Would you like to meet for coffee sometime?" I didn't question how he got my number. I didn't think about how strange it was that this mutual acquaintance had never been mentioned. I didn't see any of the red flags that, looking back now, were waving so obviously in front of my face. Instead, I typed back, "I'd love that. When?" We met the next day at a quiet cafe in a part of the city I never visited, far from anyone who might know me. Marcus was already there when I arrived, impossibly handsome in a tailored charcoal suit, a single red rose lying on the table beside his espresso. "For you," he said, handing me the flower, "to match the fire I see in your eyes." I laughed, a girlish, unfamiliar sound. "You're quite the charmer, aren't you?" "Only for you," he said, his blue eyes holding mine. "There's something special about you, Jenny, something extraordinary. I have a feeling your husband doesn't even notice it anymore." And there it was, the seed of doubt that would grow into the poisonous vine that would strangle my marriage. We talked for hours that day, the coffee growing cold as we lost ourselves in conversation. Marcus told me about his life, the penthouse apartment downtown with views of the Space Needle, the travels to exotic locations for business, the adventures that seemed to fill his every weekend. He spoke of Paris in the spring, Tokyo at cherry blossom season, private beaches in the Maldives. He made me feel like the world was full of possibilities I had been missing while trapped in the suburbs, changing diapers and packing lunches. "Your husband doesn't appreciate what he has," Marcus said, reaching across the table to take my hand. His touch sent electricity shooting up my arm. "A woman like you deserves to be worshipped, Jenny. You deserve to feel alive every single day." My heart was pounding so hard I could barely think. "Marcus, I'm married. I have 3 children." "I know," he said softly, his thumb tracing circles on my palm. "But does being married mean being invisible? Does it mean settling for a man who takes you for granted, who barely looks up from his work to see the incredible woman standing right in front of him?" "He doesn't take me for granted," I said, but even as the words left my mouth, I wasn't sure I believed them anymore. Marcus smiled, that devastating smile that made my knees weak and my resolve crumble. "Then why are you here with me, Jenny?" I had no answer. Chapter 8. The Hotel Room. By the end of our coffee date, Marcus had suggested we go somewhere more private to continue our conversation. I knew what he was really asking, and I knew deep down what my answer should have been. But the woman who drove to that boutique hotel in downtown Seattle wasn't the Jennifer who had stood at the altar 13 years earlier, promising to love, honor, and cherish until death do us part. She was someone else entirely, someone reckless and hungry for something she couldn't name. Someone who had convinced herself that she deserved more than the good life she had been given. The hotel room was elegant, all cream linens and modern furniture, with a view of Elliott Bay that sparkled under the late afternoon sun. Marcus ordered champagne. Real French champagne, not the sparkling wine Michael brought home on anniversaries, and strawberries dipped in chocolate. "You're so beautiful," he murmured, brushing a strand of hair from my face as we stood by the window. "I've thought about nothing else since we met. You've bewitched me, Jenny." When he kissed me, I didn't resist. When he led me to the bed, I followed as if in a trance. And when it was over, lying in his arms as the sunset painted the room in shades of gold and pink, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. I felt alive. I felt desired. I felt like myself again, whoever that was. But what I didn't realize, what I couldn't see through the fog of infatuation and neglected ego, was that I had just sold my soul for a moment of pleasure, and the price would be everything I held dear. Chapter 9. The comparison begins. I went home that night a changed woman. The house was quiet when I arrived. Sophie had fed the children and put them to bed, and Michael was asleep on the couch, the television playing some documentary about ancient Rome that he loved. An empty plate sat on the coffee table beside him, remnants of the dinner I should have been home to make. He woke when I closed the door, blinking sleepily. "Hey, you're late," he said, sitting up and stretching. "How was your day? Did you have fun with Vanessa?" I had told him I was meeting Vanessa for dinner. The lie had come so easily, it frightened me. "Yeah, it was nice," I said, unable to meet his eyes. "We lost track of time." He nodded, accepting my explanation without a flicker of suspicion. And in that moment, I resented him for it. Why didn't he question me? Why didn't he look at me and know that something had fundamentally changed? Why didn't he fight for me? But then I looked at him, really looked at him, and all I could see was how he compared to Marcus. Where Marcus was tall and athletic, Michael was average height and soft around the middle. Where Marcus was mysterious and exciting, Michael was comfortable and predictable. Where Marcus made me feel like a goddess, Michael made me feel like a piece of furniture. Always there, always reliable, never truly seen. The comparisons were unfair. I know that now. Michael had been by my side for 13 years, through the births of all 3 of our children, through financial struggles and career changes, through my father's death and his mother's cancer scare. He had held my hair when I had morning sickness, had stayed up countless nights with sick children, had worked 60-hour weeks to give us this beautiful house and comfortable life. Marcus had known me for a few days, but fairness has nothing to do with desire. And desire had taken complete control of my mind. Over the following weeks, I began to withdraw from my husband. I avoided his touch, claiming headaches, exhaustion, anything to keep him at arm's length. When he reached for me in bed, I turned away. When he tried to talk about his day, his projects, his dreams for the future, I gave one-word answers. My mind a million miles away. "Jenny, what's going on?" he asked one night, his voice heavy with confusion and hurt. We were lying in bed, the space between us feeling like miles instead of inches. "Have I done something wrong? Tell me what you need." "Nothing's wrong," I said coldly. "I'm just tired. Work has been stressful. The kids are exhausting. I just need some space." The hurt in his eyes should have broken my heart. He looked like a puppy that had been kicked and couldn't understand why. Instead, it only annoyed me. Why couldn't he be more like Marcus? Why couldn't he fight for me, pursue me, sweep me off my feet? I didn't understand then that Michael didn't pursue me because he trusted me completely. He didn't fight for me because he believed with his whole good heart that he already had me. His security wasn't weakness, it was the foundation of a love that had stood for over a decade. But I was too blind, too intoxicated by forbidden pleasure to see it. Chapter 10. Deeper into Deception. My affair with Marcus continued for 6 months. We would meet whenever his business allowed, which seemed to be at least once or twice a week. He would book hotel rooms all over the city, buy me gifts, jewelry, designer bags, lingerie, and shower me with the attention I craved like a drug. "Leave him," Marcus whispered one afternoon, his fingers tracing patterns on my bare shoulder as we lay tangled in hotel sheets. "Come be with me, Jenny. I'll give you a life beyond your wildest dreams. You won't have to worry about anything ever again." "I have children," I said, though the resistance in my voice was weakening with each passing week. "I can't just leave them." "Bring them," he said, kissing my forehead. "I have plenty of space. They'll have the best of everything. Private schools, travel, opportunities Michael could never give them. And they'll see their mother happy, truly happy, for the first time in their lives." The idea planted itself in my mind like a seed in fertile soil. A new life, a fresh start. A man who saw me, really saw me, not as a wife or mother, but as a woman worthy of worship. Meanwhile, at home, my relationship with Michael deteriorated beyond recognition. I picked fights over nothing. The way he loaded the dishwasher, how he disciplined the children, his choice to watch sports on the weekend instead of taking me somewhere romantic. "Why can't you be more ambitious?" I snapped one evening after he came home from work. "We've been in the same house for 5 years. Other people our age are living in mansions, taking vacations to Europe, living their lives." "I'm building something solid for our family," Michael replied, his patience seeming infinite, even as the hurt flickered in his eyes. "Sustainable success takes time, Jenny. I'd rather give our kids stability than flash." But I didn't want stability. I wanted passion, excitement, the fairy tale that Marcus was offering on a silver platter. One evening, after a particularly brutal argument about nothing and everything, Michael sat down at the kitchen table and looked at me with tears glistening in his eyes. I had never, in 13 years of marriage, seen my husband cry. "Jenny, what happened to us?" he asked quietly, his voice breaking. "Where did we go wrong? Tell me what you need and I'll do it. I'll change. I'll go to counseling. I'll do anything. Just please tell me how to fix this." For a moment, just a moment, the fog lifted and I saw him. Not the boring husband I had convinced myself he was, but the man I had married. The man who had held my hand through 3 deliveries, who had been the first to hold each of our children. The man who had worked overtime without complaint to pay for private school tuition when the public schools in our district faltered. The man who had loved me faithfully, completely, for 13 years without ever asking for anything in return. But then my phone buzzed in my pocket with a message from Marcus. "Missing you, beautiful." And the moment passed like smoke in the wind. "I don't know what you're talking about," I said, standing up from the table. "I'm fine. Everything's fine. Maybe you're the one with the problem." I walked out of the kitchen, leaving my husband sitting alone with his untouched dinner and his broken heart. Part 2. The Fall. Chapter 11. The Children's Eyes. My children were not blind to what was happening in our home. They couldn't name it, couldn't understand it, but they felt the shift in the air like animals sensing a coming storm. Ethan, now 9 years old, had become quiet and withdrawn. The little boy who used to run to me when I picked him up from school now walked silently beside me, lost in his own thoughts. His teacher called me one afternoon, concerned. "Mrs. Harrison, is everything okay at home? Ethan has been struggling to focus in class. He seems sad." "Everything's fine," I lied smoothly. "He's probably just tired." Lucas, 7, had started acting out in ways that were completely unlike him. The sweet, easygoing middle child had become defiant, talking back to teachers, picking fights with other kids on the playground. When I was called in for yet another parent-teacher conference, the counselor gently asked if there had been any changes at home. "Of course not," I said. "He's just going through a phase." And Emma, sweet, sensitive little Emma, only 5 years old, had developed a habit of sucking her thumb, something she had outgrown years ago. She had started climbing into our bed at night, even though she had slept through the night since she was 2. She clung to me in a way that should have told me everything. "Mommy, why do you and Daddy fight all the time?" she asked me one night as I tucked her into bed, her wide eyes searching my face for answers. "Grown-ups have disagreements sometimes, sweetie. It's nothing for you to worry about. Everything's going to be okay." "I don't like it when you're angry. Your face gets scary. You used to laugh more, Mommy. You used to be happy." Her words struck me like a physical blow. When had I last laughed with my children? When had I last been truly present with them instead of mentally counting the hours until I could see Marcus again? When had I stopped being the mother they deserved? But I pushed the guilt aside, burying it under the mountain of justifications I had built. Once I was with Marcus, I told myself everything would be better. The children would adapt. Children are resilient, everyone said so. They would see their mother happy, truly happy, for the first time in years. And in time, they would understand. How could I have been so catastrophically wrong? Chapter 12. The Friend Who Saw. It was Rebecca, my neighbor and oldest friend in Seattle, who first confronted me. We had met the week Michael and I moved into the neighborhood, when she showed up at our door with a casserole and a welcome basket. Over the years, she had become my closest friend. We carpooled together, had wine nights after the kids were in bed, supported each other through the exhausting years of early motherhood. Rebecca was married to Tom, a pediatric surgeon, and they had 2 boys close in age to Ethan and Lucas. She was kind, loyal, and honest to a fault. And she had known me long enough to know when something was wrong. She arrived at my door unannounced one Saturday afternoon in September. The children were at Michael's mother's house. Patricia had been taking them more often lately, sensing the tension in our home, even if she didn't know the cause. Michael was at the office, working on a deadline for a major project. "We need to talk," Rebecca said, pushing past me into the living room. Her face was pale, her expression a mixture of anger and something that looked like grief. About what? I asked, my heart beginning to race. About what you're doing to Michael, she said, turning to face me. About what you're doing to your family. I don't know what you're talking about. Rebecca closed her eyes, as if gathering strength. Jenny, I saw you. 2 weeks ago, at the Fairmont downtown. I was there for a medical conference with Tom, and I saw you walking into the elevator with some man. I saw you kiss him. The floor seemed to tilt beneath my feet. I had been so careful, or so I thought. How could I have been seen? It's not what you think, I began, but Rebecca held up her hand. Please don't insult my intelligence, she said, her voice tight with controlled emotion. I didn't want to believe it. I told myself there had to be an explanation. But I've watched you for months, Jenny. The secretive phone calls, the mysterious appointments, the way you've withdrawn from Michael like he's a stranger instead of your husband of 13 years. I said nothing. There was nothing I could say. Happy? Rebecca's laugh was harsh, disbelieving. You have a husband who worships the ground you walk on, 3 beautiful, healthy children, a home, a life, everything most women dream of, and you're throwing it away? For what? Some smooth-talking affair that makes you feel special? He does make me feel special, I shot back, my defenses rising. He makes me feel alive. Michael barely notices I exist. Michael loves you more than anything in this world, Rebecca said, her voice softening slightly. He talks about you constantly, Jenny. He's so proud of you. He has no idea that you're... She couldn't finish the sentence. Maybe that's the problem, I said. Maybe he's too comfortable, too complacent. A woman needs to be pursued, Rebecca, desired. I can't remember the last time Michael looked at me the way Marcus looks at me. Marcus. Rebecca repeated the name like it was poison. Do you even know anything about this man? Really know him? Or do you just know what he tells you in hotel rooms? Her words hit uncomfortably close to the truth I had been avoiding. I didn't actually know much about Marcus's personal life. He had never invited me to his apartment despite claiming to live in a penthouse downtown. He had never introduced me to any friends or colleagues. All I knew was what he told me between expensive dinners and tangled sheets. Get out, I said, my voice shaking. I'm leaving, Rebecca said, gathering her purse. But I want you to remember something. I've known you for 6 years. I've watched you be an incredible mother, a devoted wife. The woman standing in front of me right now is not the Jenny I know. And when this all falls apart, and it will fall apart, I promise you that, I hope you can find your way back to who you really are. She paused at the door. I won't tell Michael. That's not my secret to tell. But I can't watch you do this anymore. Whatever happens next, you're on your own. The door closed behind her with a quiet click that sounded like a thunderclap. Chapter 13. The Ultimatum. That night, I lay awake for hours, Rebecca's words echoing in my head like an accusation. For the first time since that evening in the mall, doubt crept into the perfect fantasy I had built. What did I really know about Marcus? The question nagged at me like a splinter I couldn't remove. The next day, instead of meeting him at our usual hotel, I suggested we have dinner at his apartment. I told him I wanted to see where he lived, to make our relationship feel more real. There was a pause on the phone, the briefest hesitation. My place is being renovated, he said smoothly. The whole building is torn up. How about we try that new French restaurant instead? I accepted his explanation, wanting to believe it, but a seed of suspicion had been planted, and over the next few weeks, I started noticing things I had overlooked before. Marcus never answered his phone when I called. I always had to leave a message and wait for him to call back. He was frequently traveling for business, but was vague about the details. He claimed to have a high-powered job in finance, but he never seemed to work regular hours, never mentioned colleagues by name, never complained about meetings or deadlines the way Michael did. One evening, about a week after Rebecca's confrontation, Marcus and I were lying in bed at our usual hotel when he propped himself up on one elbow and looked at me with an intensity that made my breath catch. "I've been thinking," he said, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on my shoulder. "We can't keep doing this forever, Jenny. Sneaking around, stolen hours here and there. I want more. I want you." "What are you saying?" I asked, my heart pounding. "I'm saying leave him. Leave Michael. Come be with me full time." His blue eyes were earnest, persuasive. "I've never felt this way about anyone before. You're everything I've ever wanted. We could have an incredible life together. But the children will be fine," he finished. "Kids adjust. They're resilient, and they deserve to see their mother happy, don't they? Truly happy, not just going through the motions." I should have asked more questions. I should have demanded to see his apartment, meet his friends, have some concrete proof that the life he was promising actually existed. But I was so deep in the fantasy, so addicted to the way he made me feel, that I couldn't see past my own desire. "I need time," I said. "I can't just walk out overnight. There are things to arrange." Marcus smiled, that devastating smile that had captured me from the beginning. "Take all the time you need, beautiful. I'm not going anywhere." Chapter 14. Burning Bridges. Over the next month, I systematically destroyed my marriage. I picked fights with Michael over everything and nothing. I criticized his career choices, his parenting style, his appearance. I told him he was boring, that he had let himself go, that I felt trapped in a life I had never really chosen. "When did you become so cruel?" Michael asked one night after a particularly vicious argument about money. His voice was quiet, defeated. So different from the confident man I had married. What happened to the woman I fell in love with? "Maybe she never existed," I said. "Maybe you only saw what you wanted to see." I watched something break behind his eyes that night. Some last shred of hope that he had been clinging to simply shattered. "Do you want a divorce?" he asked, the words seeming to cost him everything. "Is that what this is about? Because if you're unhappy, truly unhappy, I love you enough to let you go. I just need you to be honest with me, Jenny. After everything we've been through, you owe me that much." This was my chance. I could have told him the truth, could have confessed everything, could have asked for forgiveness, or at least given him the dignity of honesty. But I was too much of a coward. "Yes," I said instead. "I want a divorce. I don't love you anymore, Michael. Maybe I never really did." The lie tasted like ash in my mouth, but I forced it out anyway. Because admitting that I was leaving for another man would have meant admitting that I was the villain in this story. And I wasn't ready to face that truth. Michael moved out that weekend. He rented an apartment downtown to be close to his office and agreed to let me stay in the house with the children until we figured out custody arrangements. He was generous in the divorce proceedings, giving me more than I deserved, never fighting over money or assets. "I just want you to be happy," he said when we met with the lawyers. "Whatever that takes." I couldn't meet his eyes. Chapter 15. Telling the children. The day we told the children was the hardest day of my life. Or so I thought at the time. I didn't know then that there would be so many harder days to come. We sat them down in the living room on a Sunday afternoon. Michael and I side by side on the couch in a parody of the united front we had once been. Ethan, Lucas, and Emma sat across from us, their young faces already worried. "Mommy and Daddy need to talk to you about something important," Michael began, his voice remarkably steady. "We love you all very, very much. That will never change. But sometimes things change between grown-ups and are you getting divorced?" Ethan interrupted, his 9-year-old voice sharp with fear. "Tyler's parents got divorced last year. He said they sat him down just like this." Michael looked at me, and I saw in his eyes that he was waiting for me to help, to share this burden. But I couldn't speak. The words were stuck in my throat, blocked by a guilt so overwhelming I could barely breathe. "Yes, buddy," Michael said finally. "Mom and I have decided to live separately, but that doesn't mean—" "No!" Emma shrieked, launching herself at Michael, wrapping her small arms around his neck. "No, Daddy, no, don't leave. I'll be good. I promise I'll be good." "Oh, sweetheart, this isn't about you being good or bad," Michael said, gathering her close, tears streaming down his face. "This isn't your fault. None of this is your fault." Lucas said nothing. He just stared at us with hollow eyes, his face completely blank, as if he had retreated somewhere deep inside himself where the pain couldn't reach. And Ethan looked directly at me, and in his eyes I saw something that chilled me to the bone. Not grief, not confusion, suspicion. "This is your fault, isn't it, Mom?" he said quietly. "You did this." "Ethan," Michael began. "No, Dad. She's the one who's always angry. She's the one who's always gone. She's the one who changed." He stood up, his small body rigid, with a fury far beyond his years. "I hate you," he said to me, his voice trembling. "I hate you, and I'll never forgive you." He ran to his room and slammed the door so hard the pictures on the wall shook. I should have gone after him. I should have held him, explained, tried to help him understand. But I just sat there, frozen, as the magnitude of what I had done began to dawn on me. This was not the liberation I had imagined. This was destruction, pure and simple, and I was its architect. Part 3. The Reckoning. Chapter 16. Moving in with Marcus. 2 weeks after Michael moved out, I told Marcus I was ready. The divorce papers were filed, the children were with their father for the weekend, and I was finally free to start my new life. Marcus picked me up in a sleek black Mercedes I had never seen before. "Company car," he explained vaguely, and drove me to what he said was his new apartment. The penthouse was being renovated, he claimed, so he had rented a temporary place. The temporary place was a high-rise condo in downtown Seattle. It was modern and sleek, with floor-to-ceiling windows and expensive furniture, but something about it felt impersonal. There were no photographs on the walls, no books on the shelves, nothing that suggested anyone actually lived there. "I just moved in," Marcus said when I commented on it. "Haven't had time to decorate." I pushed away my unease. This was my new beginning. I wasn't going to let trivial details ruin it. The first week was everything Marcus had promised. We went to expensive restaurants, spent long mornings in bed, walked hand in hand along the waterfront like the new couple we supposedly were. He bought me jewelry, clothes, anything I admired in a shop window. "You deserve to be spoiled," he said. "I want to give you the world." But by the second week, cracks began to appear in the fantasy. Marcus started coming home late. At first, it was just an hour or two. Business dinners, he said, client meetings that ran long. Then It was 3, 4, 5 in the morning. Sometimes he didn't come home at all. "Where were you?" I asked one morning when he finally stumbled in around 6 a.m., smelling of alcohol and unfamiliar perfume. "Working," he said shortly. "Don't nag, Jenny. I told you my job is demanding." "Nagging?" I repeated, stunned. This was not the Marcus who had pursued me with such intensity, who had made me feel like the center of his universe. "I'm just asking where you were." And I answered, "Now, can we drop it? I'm exhausted." He brushed past me to the bedroom, leaving me standing alone in the kitchen, the first cold fingers of doubt wrapping around my heart. Chapter 17. The Truth Emerges. By the end of the first month, I barely recognized my life, or the man I had destroyed my family for. Marcus had become cold, distant, critical. He complained about the way I dressed, the way I wore my hair, the way I laughed. He made comments about my age, reminding me that I was almost 40, with a tone that made it sound like a death sentence. "You know, when I first saw you at that mall, I thought you were younger," he said one evening as I got ready for dinner. "You photograph well. The camera is kind to you." The insult hidden in the compliment stung worse than outright cruelty. And then there were the phone calls. Marcus would step outside to take them, speaking in hushed tones, returning with excuses that grew more transparent by the day. Once, I caught a glimpse of his phone screen before he snatched it away, a text from someone named Lisa with a heart emoji. "Who's Lisa?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. "Client," he said without missing a beat. "She's got a big portfolio, very touchy-feely type, loves her emojis." I wanted to believe him. I needed to believe him. Because if Marcus wasn't the man he claimed to be, then I had destroyed my family for nothing. But the truth has a way of surfacing, no matter how desperately we tried to keep it buried. One afternoon, while Marcus was in the shower, his phone buzzed with a text. I knew I shouldn't look. I knew it was wrong, but I was desperate, drowning in suspicion, and I needed to know. The text was from someone named Diane. "When are you coming home? The kids miss you. I miss you. You promised this Seattle thing would only be a few months." The world tilted sideways. I scrolled up through the messages with shaking hands, and there it was. The truth I had been too blind, too desperate, too foolish to see. Marcus was married. He had a wife named Diane in New York. He had children, 2 daughters, ages 7 and 9. The Seattle business opportunity was a lie, an extended escape from his real life while he played house with me. I wasn't his fresh start. I was his midlife crisis. When Marcus emerged from the shower, he found me sitting on the bed, his phone in my hands, tears streaming down my face. "I can explain," he started, but his voice held no conviction. "You're married," I whispered. "You have children. Everything you told me was a lie." He had the audacity to look annoyed. "Don't be so dramatic, Jenny. Yes, I'm technically married, but Diane and I have an understanding. It's complicated." "Complicated?" I laughed, a hollow, broken sound. "I left my husband for you. I destroyed my family. I traumatized my children. And you were lying the entire time?" "You wanted to leave," Marcus said, his voice turning cold. "I didn't force you to do anything. You were bored with your little suburban life, desperate for excitement. I just gave you what you were looking for." "I was looking for love," I said. Marcus laughed. "No, you were looking for an escape, and I was available. But let's be honest, you were never going to be anything more than a distraction. A woman your age with 3 kids and a divorce under her belt? Come on. I was always going to go back to Diane eventually." The cruelty of his words took my breath away. This was the man I had thrown everything away for. This was the great love I had convinced myself was worth the destruction of my family. "Get out," Marcus said, straightening his tie in the mirror. "I have a flight to catch. Diane's expecting me home for our anniversary." He smirked at my reflection. "You can stay through the end of the month. Consider it a parting gift." He walked out without a backward glance. Chapter 18. Rock Bottom. The weeks that followed were the darkest of my life. I moved out of Marcus's condo and into a small studio apartment in a rundown building south of downtown. It was all I could afford. The divorce settlement hadn't come through yet, and I had been so focused on my fairy tale with Marcus that I hadn't thought about practical matters like savings or employment. I had been out of the workforce for years, having quit my marketing job when Emma was born. My skills were outdated, my resume full of gaps. The few interviews I managed to get ended with polite rejections and promises to keep my application on file. But the financial struggles were nothing compared to the loss of my children. Michael had been awarded primary custody, not through any vindictiveness on his part, but because I had been the one to leave, the one to break up the family, and I had no stable housing to offer. I was allowed to see them every other weekend and one evening a week, but even those visits were torture. Ethan refused to speak to me. He would sit in the corner of whatever restaurant or park I took them to, his face buried in a book, responding to my attempts at conversation with monosyllables or hostile silence. "Give him time," Michael said when I called, crying after one particularly brutal visit. "He's processing a lot. He's angry, but he still loves you." Even now, even after everything, Michael was kind to me. It made the guilt even worse. Lucas had become withdrawn in a different way. Quiet, obedient, but hollow somehow, as if something essential had been dimmed inside him. His teachers reported that he had stopped participating in class, stopped playing with friends at recess. He just sat alone, staring at nothing. And Emma, my baby, my sweet golden girl, cried every time she had to leave me, and cried every time she had to leave her father. She didn't understand why she couldn't have us both together, why her world had been split in two. "Mommy, why can't you come home?" she asked me one evening, her small hand gripping mine as we sat on a park bench. "It's complicated, sweetheart," I said, the inadequate words tasting like betrayal. "But I want you to come home," she insisted. "I want us all to be together again. Can't you say sorry to Daddy? I say sorry when I do something wrong, and then everything's okay again." If only it were that simple. If only sorry could undo the damage I had done. "Some things can't be fixed with sorry," I said, pulling her close. "But I love you so much, baby. That will never, ever change." She was too young to understand, and I was too broken to explain. Chapter 19. A letter to my younger self. Present day. 3 years after the divorce. I still live in that small studio apartment in Portland. I couldn't bear to stay in Seattle, where every street corner held a memory of my former life. I work as an administrative assistant at a small accounting firm, a job that pays the bills but offers little else. I see my children twice a month now. The distance makes more frequent visits difficult. Ethan, now 12, has finally started speaking to me again, though our conversations are still strained. Lucas, 10, is in therapy, working through the trauma of his parents' divorce with a kindness I don't deserve. And Emma, 8, still clings to me when we're together, as if afraid I'll disappear again. Michael remarried last year. Her name is Sarah, and by all accounts, she's wonderful. Warm, patient, kind to my children in a way that makes me grateful and heartbroken at the same time. They have a baby on the way, and when Emma told me the news, "Daddy's having another baby, Mommy. I'm going to be a big sister again," I had to excuse myself to cry in the bathroom. Not because I begrudge Michael his happiness, he deserves it more than anyone I know, but because that could have been my life, that should have been my life. I heard through mutual friends that Marcus's wife eventually found out about his affairs. I wasn't the only one, it turned out. There had been others before me and others after. Diane filed for divorce, taking the children and half of everything he had. The last I heard, Marcus was living in a one-bedroom apartment in New Jersey, his carefully constructed life in ruins. There was no satisfaction in his downfall, only the bitter recognition that we destroyed others in our pursuit of selfish pleasure, and now we're both paying the price. Chapter 20. The Letter. Last week, I received a message from a woman named Amanda. She had somehow found my email address and reached out with a question that stopped my heart. I'm 32, married for 7 years with 2 young kids. I've met someone, and I feel things I haven't felt in years. My husband is a good man, but our marriage feels stale. I'm thinking about leaving. A friend told me you went through something similar. Can we talk? I stared at that message for a long time, and then I began to write. Dear Amanda, I don't know who gave you my contact information, but I'm glad they did. What I'm about to tell you isn't easy to share, but if my story can save even one woman from making the same devastating mistakes I made, then perhaps some good can come from my suffering. My name is Jennifer. I'm 39 years old. I was married for 13 years to a good man, a man who loved me completely, who provided for our family, who was present and patient and kind. We had 3 beautiful children together. And I threw it all away for an affair. I know what you're feeling right now. I know the intoxication of new desire, the way it makes your skin tingle and your heart race. I know how your husband has started to seem boring compared to this exciting stranger, how his familiar touch now feels like suffocation rather than comfort. I know the lies you tell yourself, that you deserve to be happy, that life is short, that surely there must be more than this. I told myself all those lies too. Let me tell you where those lies led me. I am alone now. I live in a tiny apartment with secondhand furniture and neighbors who play loud music until 3 a.m. The man I left my husband for turned out to be a liar and a fraud, married himself with children of his own, using me as a temporary distraction from his real life. I see my children twice a month. My oldest hated me for years. My middle child needed therapy to process the trauma. My youngest still asks why I can't come home. And every time she asks, a piece of my heart dies. My ex-husband remarried. He's happy now, building a new family with a woman who appreciates what I was too foolish to value. And I am genuinely glad for him. He deserves that happiness. But watching from the outside as someone else lives the life I threw away is a special kind of torture. Amanda, that man who makes you feel alive, he's selling you a fantasy that requires no sacrifice, no compromise, no real commitment. He only sees you at your best, flirtatious, available, free from the mundane responsibilities of daily life. He doesn't see you at 3 a.m. with a sick child, or during a fight about money, or on the days when you're exhausted and irritable and decidedly unglamorous. Your husband has seen all of that, and he's still there. That's not boring, that's love. Marriage isn't supposed to feel like a constant roller coaster. The butterflies fade, they always fade. And what you're left with is something quieter but infinitely more valuable. Partnership, history, shared dreams, a witness to your life. The excitement of an affair is a sugar rush. A solid marriage is sustenance. I'm not saying your feelings aren't valid. If something is missing in your marriage, address it. Talk to your husband. See a counselor together. Put in the work to rekindle what you once had. Fight for your family the way I should have fought for mine. But please, I'm begging you, don't do what I did. Don't mistake destruction for liberation. Don't convince yourself that the grass is greener when you haven't even tried to water your own lawn. Don't sacrifice something real and lasting for something that's all smoke and mirrors. I know this is hard to hear. I know part of you is already rationalizing, already finding exceptions, already telling yourself that your situation is different. Mine was too, I thought. It wasn't. 3 years ago, I stood where you're standing now. I had a choice to make. I chose wrong, and I have paid for that choice every single day since. Not a morning goes by that I don't wake up with regret as my first companion. Not a night passes that I don't fall asleep wishing I could go back and make a different decision. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm trying to save you, because the woman I was 3 years ago, the one who was so certain she knew what she needed, so convinced that happiness lay outside her marriage, that woman would have given anything for someone to grab her by the shoulders and tell her the truth. So here it is, the truth. There is nothing special out here, Amanda. Nothing worth the price of admission. I traded a good man for a con artist. I traded my children's security for their trauma. I traded a comfortable home for a cramped apartment. I traded respect from my family, my friends, myself, for shame that follows me everywhere I go. I don't know what your marriage is lacking, but I promise you, whatever it is, it can be fixed more easily than the damage an affair will cause. Whatever is broken can be mended, but once you step outside your marriage, some things can never be put back together. Please talk to your husband. Tell him you're struggling. Give him a chance to fight for you. Give yourself a chance to fight for your family. Don't become me. With all my heart and all my regret, Jennifer. Part 4. Other Voices. Chapter 21. Michael's Story. Told from Michael Harrison's perspective. I knew something was wrong long before Jennifer admitted it. Call it intuition, call it the accumulated wisdom of 13 years of marriage. Whatever it was, I could feel her slipping away from me like sand through my fingers. The woman who had once run to greet me at the door now barely looked up when I came home. The wife who used to curl against me in bed now lay on the far edge of the mattress, as distant as a stranger. Just tired, she would say when I asked what was wrong. Work stress, the kids are exhausting. I believed her, or rather, I wanted to believe her so desperately that I ignored what my gut was telling me. I tried everything I could think of. I brought home flowers for no reason. I arranged date nights, booking babysitters, and making reservations at her favorite restaurants. I complimented her constantly, told her she was beautiful, tried to recapture the romance of our early years. Nothing worked. She pulled further away with each passing week, her eyes always somewhere else, her mind clearly occupied with thoughts she wasn't sharing. And when she looked at me, really looked, there was something in her gaze that I had never seen before. Disappointment, maybe even disgust. I asked my sister Karen for advice. She had been married for 20 years and had weathered some difficult times herself. Have you considered that she might be having an affair? Karen asked gently. Jenny would never do that, I said immediately. She's not that kind of person. But even as I said the words, doubt crept in. The late nights, the secretive phone calls, the way she would quickly close her laptop when I entered the room, the unfamiliar perfume I had noticed on her clothes. I could have confronted her. I could have demanded to see her phone, followed her to one of her mysterious appointments, forced the truth into the open. But I was terrified of what I might find. As long as I didn't know for certain, I could pretend everything was fine. I could hope it was just a phase, that she would come back to me on her own. That's what cowards do. They pretend. They hope. They wait. The night Jennifer told me she wanted a divorce, I wasn't surprised. Devastated, yes. Heartbroken beyond words, but not surprised. Do you love someone else? I asked, needing to know but dreading the answer. No, she said, and even then, even as my world was crashing down, I knew she was lying. I just don't love you anymore, Michael. Maybe I never really did. Those words, maybe I never really did, were sharper than any knife. 13 years of marriage, 3 children, countless shared moments of joy and sorrow, and she could dismiss it all with a single sentence. I moved out that weekend. I found a small apartment downtown, close enough to see the kids easily, far enough from our house that I wouldn't have to watch Jennifer's new life unfold without me. The next few months were the hardest of my life, not just because of the divorce, though that was painful enough, but because I had to watch my children suffer, had to hold them while they cried, had to answer questions I didn't know how to answer. Why doesn't Mommy love us anymore? Emma asked one night, and I thought my heart would literally break. Mommy loves you so much, sweetheart, I said. This isn't about you. Sometimes grown-ups have problems that don't have anything to do with their children. Then why can't she fix the problems? My logical little girl demanded. You fix problems at work. Why can't Mommy fix her problems? I had no answer. I found out about Marcus eventually. Karen saw them together at a restaurant, cozy in a corner booth, his hand on her thigh, looking at each other the way Jenny used to look at me. She debated whether to tell me, but decided I deserved to know the truth. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't angry. For weeks, I was consumed by rage. At Jennifer for betraying me, at Marcus for pursuing another man's wife, at myself for not seeing it sooner, for not fighting harder. I fantasized about confronting them, about making Marcus pay for destroying my family. But anger is exhausting, and eventually I realized that clinging to it was only hurting me and my children. My therapist helped me see that I had a choice. I could let this betrayal define me, poison me, turn me into a bitter man consumed by resentment. Or I could accept what had happened, grieve it fully, and then move forward. I chose to move forward, not because Jennifer deserved forgiveness, I'm still not sure she does, but because I deserved peace, because my children deserved a father who was present and hopeful, not lost in anger and regret. 2 years after the divorce, I met Sarah. She wasn't anything like Jennifer, where Jenny was always restless, always searching for something more. Sarah was content, genuinely, deeply content with who she was and what she had. She loved my kids from the very beginning, never trying to replace their mother, but offering them a steady, nurturing presence that they desperately needed. You're going to be okay, she told me one night, early in our relationship, when I confided my fears about trusting again. Not because of me, because of you. You're a good man, Michael. You deserved better than what happened to you. I married Sarah last spring. Jennifer wasn't at the wedding, of course, but the kids were there. Ethan as my best man, Lucas as a groomsman, Emma as the flower girl. And as I watched them celebrate with us, laughing and dancing and looking happier than they had in years, I felt something I thought I had lost forever: hope. I still think about Jennifer sometimes. I wonder if she's found what she was looking for, if the grass turned out to be as green as she expected. I've heard through mutual friends that things didn't work out with Marcus, that she's struggling now. Part of me wants to feel satisfaction at that news. But mostly, I just feel sad. She was my wife, the mother of my children, and despite everything, I once loved her more than I thought it was possible to love anyone. I hope she finds peace. I hope she learns from her mistakes, and I hope for her sake and for the sake of our children that she finds a way to forgive herself someday. Because that's the thing about forgiveness. It's not really about the other person. It's about freeing yourself. Chapter 22. Ethan's story. Told from Ethan Harrison's perspective, age 12. I was 9 when my parents got divorced. I'm 12 now, and I think I finally understand some things that I didn't understand then. Back when it first happened, I was just angry. Angry at my mom for leaving, angry at my dad for letting her go, angry at both of them for destroying our family without even asking me if it was okay. I know that sounds stupid. Kids don't get a vote in their parents' marriage, but it was my family too, you know? It was my house, my life, my normal. And one day it just wasn't anymore. The worst part was that nobody told me the truth. They said things like, "Mommy and Daddy have grown apart," and "sometimes adults change," and all that garbage that adults tell kids when they don't want to admit what's really going on. But I'm not stupid. I noticed things. I noticed that my mom started wearing different perfume, something fancy that didn't smell like her. I noticed that she was always on her phone, smiling at texts she would never show us. I noticed that she would disappear for hours and come back distracted, like her body was in the house, but her mind was somewhere else entirely. And I noticed the way she looked at my dad, like he was a stranger, like she couldn't remember why she had ever married him. I found out about Marcus by accident. I was doing a project for school, needed to use Mom's laptop, and her email was open. There was a message from some guy talking about meeting at a hotel, about how much he missed her, about how he couldn't wait for them to start their life together. I was 9 years old, and I read that email, and I felt something inside me just die. I confronted her that night, asked her who Marcus was. She tried to lie, said it was just a friend, but I knew. Kids always know when they're being lied to. "You're the reason Dad is leaving," I said. "You're the reason everything is broken." She tried to explain, tried to make me understand that it was complicated, that she wasn't happy, that sometimes adults make choices that are hard for children to comprehend. I told her I hated her, and for a long time, I meant it. The first year after the divorce was the worst. I was so angry that I couldn't see straight. I refused to talk to Mom during our visits, refused to engage with anything she said. I wanted to hurt her the way she had hurt us. Dad was the one who helped me through it. Not by bad-mouthing Mom, he never did that, even when I could tell he was hurting, but by just being there, by listening when I needed to rant, by holding me when I needed to cry, by reminding me over and over that it was okay to feel what I was feeling. "Your mom made some bad choices," he said once, "but she's still your mother. She still loves you. And someday, when you're ready, you might want to give her a chance to make things right." "Why should I?" I demanded. "She didn't give us a chance." Dad sighed, and for a moment he looked so tired that I felt guilty for adding to his burden. Because anger is heavy, buddy, and you can't carry it forever. At some point, You have to put it down. Not for her sake, for yours. It took a long time, but eventually I started talking to Mom again. Not because I forgave her exactly, but because the anger was exhausting me. I was tired of being angry all the time. I wanted to just feel normal again. Things are better now. Not perfect. They'll never be perfect, but better. Mom seems different than she was before. Sadder somehow. Like she's carrying something heavy that she can't put down. I know Marcus left her. I know she's struggling. Part of me thinks she deserves it. But another part, the part that remembers her reading me bedtime stories, holding me when I was scared of thunderstorms, cheering louder than anyone at my Little League games, that part feels sorry for her. Here's what I've learned from all of this. And I'm only 12, so maybe I don't know anything, but this is what I think. Actions have consequences. Every choice you make affects other people, whether you want it to or not. My mom made choices that felt right to her at the time, but those choices rippled out and touched everyone around her. Me, Lucas, Emma, my dad, probably even Marcus's family. She thought she was just choosing for herself, but she was really choosing for all of us. And once you make a choice like that, you can't take it back. You can apologize. You can try to make amends, but the damage is done. The people you hurt carry scars that never fully heal. I'm not saying people shouldn't make changes in their lives. I'm not saying people should stay in situations that make them miserable. But I am saying that you should think really, really hard before you blow up your family for someone you just met at a mall. Because people like me, the kids, we're the ones who pay the price. Chapter 23, Vanessa's Realization, told from Vanessa Moore's perspective. I was the one who encouraged Jennifer to live a little. I was the one who planted seeds of discontent in her mind, who made her feel like her stable marriage was a prison rather than a privilege. I didn't know it would end like this. My name is Vanessa, and I'm 41 years old. I've been single my entire adult life. By choice, I always said. I had my career in real estate, my condo with the city view, my freedom to come and go as I pleased. I pitied women like Jennifer, trapped in their suburban homes with their predictable husbands and their endless responsibilities. Don't you feel suffocated? I would ask her over martinis. Don't you ever want more? I thought I was helping her. I thought I was opening her eyes to possibilities she had never considered. I thought I was being a good friend. I was wrong. When Jennifer left Michael, I cheered her on. You're so brave, I told her. You're finally living for yourself. When she moved in with Marcus, I was envious. You found someone who appreciates you, I said. Someone exciting. But then I watched her fall apart. I watched her lose her children, her home, her self-respect. I watched Marcus discard her like yesterday's newspaper. I watched her move into that sad little apartment, struggle to find work, cry herself to sleep night after night. And I had to ask myself some hard questions. What had I been selling her all those years? Freedom? Excitement? Or just my own loneliness dressed up in designer clothes? Because here's the truth I never admitted to anyone, least of all myself. I wasn't single by choice. I was single because I was afraid. Afraid of commitment, afraid of vulnerability, afraid of letting anyone close enough to hurt me. I built walls around my heart and called it independence. I rejected intimacy and called it freedom. And I projected my fears onto Jennifer. I looked at her marriage, her solid, loving, ordinary marriage, and I resented it. Resented her for having what I was too scared to pursue. So I undermined it. I pointed out everything she was missing, never acknowledging everything she had. I'm not saying I'm responsible for what Jennifer did. She made her own choices, but I was a voice in her ear. telling her that the grass was greener, that she deserved more, that her husband was holding her back from some imaginary better life. I've done a lot of thinking since Jennifer's divorce, a lot of uncomfortable self-reflection. At 41, I have my condo and my career and my freedom, but I also have an empty apartment that no one comes home to. I have holidays spent alone or with friends who have their own families to get back to. I have a phone that doesn't ring on lazy Sunday mornings, a bed that's always cold on one side, a future that stretches out in front of me with no one to share it with. Is that freedom, or is it just a different kind of prison? I've started seeing a therapist. I'm working on understanding why I've kept everyone at arm's length my whole life. I'm learning that intimacy isn't a trap, it's a gift. That commitment isn't suffocation, it's choosing someone every day and being chosen in return. Maybe it's too late for me to find what Jennifer threw away. Maybe I've spent too many years running from love to ever catch it. But if I can't have it myself, the least I can do is stop convincing other women to abandon it. I reached out to Jennifer last month, apologized for the role I played in her destruction. She was gracious about it, more gracious than I deserved. "You didn't make me do anything," she said. "I made my own choices. But thank you for saying it." I've also started having different conversations with my married friends. Instead of pointing out what they're missing, I try to remind them what they have. Instead of glamorizing my single life, I'm honest about the loneliness that comes with it. Because the truth is, there's nothing glamorous about eating dinner alone every night. There's nothing empowering about having no one to call when you're scared or sad or just need a hug. There's nothing fulfilling about a life built entirely around yourself. Jennifer had everything I secretly wanted, and I helped her throw it away. I have to live with that, but I don't have to keep making the same mistake. Chapter 24. Sarah's Perspective. Told from Sarah Harrison's perspective, Michael's second wife. I knew about Jennifer before I ever met Michael. Not personally, of course, but I knew about her, the ex-wife who had left him for another man, breaking his heart and shattering his family in the process. My friend Carla had told me about him before setting us up on a blind date. "He's been through a lot," Carla warned me. "His ex really did a number on him. But he's a good man, Sarah. One of the best I know. Just be patient with him, okay? He might have some walls up." I almost didn't go on that date. I was 35, tired of disappointments, wary of men who came with baggage and complicated histories. The last thing I wanted was to be someone's rebound or therapist. But something made me say yes. Call it fate, intuition, or just curiosity. Whatever it was, I'm grateful for it every day. Michael was nothing like I expected. I thought I'd meet a bitter, broken man, someone who would spend the entire dinner complaining about his ex and wallowing in self-pity. Instead, I met someone warm, genuine, and surprisingly hopeful. He spoke about his children with such obvious love. He talked about his work with passion. And when I asked about his divorce, carefully, gently, he was honest without being cruel. "Jennifer and I weren't right for each other anymore," he said simply. "I think she wasn't happy for a long time and I didn't see it. Or maybe I saw it and didn't know how to fix it. Either way, she made choices that I wouldn't have made, but I'm trying to move forward for myself and for my kids." No venom, no bitterness, just the quiet acceptance that impressed me more than any grand gesture could have. I fell in love with Michael slowly, then all at once. I fell in love with his kindness, his steadiness, his ability to see the best in people even when they'd hurt him. I fell in love with the way he sang off-key while making breakfast, the way he read bedtime stories with different voices for each character, the way he looked at me like I was something precious. But I also fell in love with his children. Ethan, Lucas, and Emma became mine, not through biology, but through choice. Theirs and mine. It wasn't easy. Kids who have been through divorce are naturally protective of their hearts. They test you, push you, wait for you to leave like everyone else. I didn't leave. I stayed through the tantrums and the cold shoulders and the whispered conversations that stopped when I entered the room. I stayed through Emma's nightmares about her other mommy, and Lucas's silent spells and Ethan's careful, watchful eyes that assessed my every move. And slowly, gradually, they let me in. I've never tried to replace Jennifer. That's not my place, and it's not what those kids need. They have a mother, a complicated, flawed, human mother who made terrible mistakes, but who loves them in her own way. My job isn't to erase her. My job is to add to the love in their lives, not subtract from what already exists. But I'd be lying if I said I don't sometimes feel anger toward Jennifer. Not for the divorce, that's her burden to carry, but for what she did to those children. For the fear I see in Emma's eyes whenever Michael and I disagree. The terror that any conflict means someone is leaving. For the walls Lucas has built around himself so high and thick that it takes weeks of patient work to breach them. For the premature cynicism in Ethan, who at 12 already talks about marriage like it's a trap rather than a blessing. Jennifer didn't just break her marriage. She broke her children's ability to trust. And that's something that takes years to repair, if it can be repaired at all. I'm pregnant now, 5 months along with a little girl we're going to name Grace. The children are excited, even Ethan, who pretends to be too cool for baby stuff, but I've caught him reading parenting books when he thinks no one is watching. Sometimes I wonder what Jennifer thinks about our growing family. Does she feel replaced? Regretful? Relieved? I hope she's finding peace wherever she is. Not because she deserves it. I'm not sure she does. But because holding on to anger doesn't help anyone. And because, ultimately, she gave me the greatest gift of my life. She walked away from a good man. And that good man found me. Part 5. Redemption. Chapter 25. Jennifer's Therapy. Back to Jennifer's perspective. Dr. Rebecca Chen's office was on the 3rd floor of a nondescript building in downtown Portland. The waiting room was decorated in soothing blues and greens, with a white noise machine humming softly in the corner. Inspirational quotes dotted the walls. You are not your mistakes. Growth is uncomfortable. Every day is a new beginning. I had been seeing Dr. Chen for 6 months. It was Sarah, of all people, who had suggested it. You should talk to someone, she said during one of my visits to pick up the kids. Her voice was kind, without a trace of judgment. Not for anyone else, for yourself. You're carrying a lot, Jennifer. You don't have to carry it alone. I had expected to hate Sarah. She was living my life, after all, in my house, with my husband, raising my children. But it's hard to hate someone who treats your kids with genuine love, who never says a bad word about you in front of them, who goes out of her way to make your visitation weekends go smoothly. So I took her advice. I found Dr. Chen, and I started the long, painful process of understanding how I had become the woman who destroyed her own family. Let's talk about that evening at the mall, Dr. Chen said during one of our sessions. What were you looking for when you went shopping that day? I don't know, I said. Nothing specific. I just wanted to get out of the house. Were you happy? In your life? Your marriage? I was quiet for a long moment. I thought I wasn't. I thought something was missing. But now I think I just didn't know how to be happy. I kept waiting for happiness to feel like something else, something bigger, more exciting. I didn't realize that what I had, that contentment, that stability, that was happiness. I just didn't recognize it. Dr. Chen nodded. Many people confuse excitement with happiness. But excitement is temporary, it fades. True happiness is often quieter than we expect. I know that now, I said, tears streaming down my face. But I learned it too late. We spent many sessions unpacking my childhood, my expectations of marriage, my relationship with my own parents. I realized that I had grown up on a steady diet of romantic movies and fairy tales, all of which suggested that love should feel like fireworks all the time. When my marriage settled into a comfortable routine, I interpreted it as failure rather than success. I also realized that I had never really learned how to communicate. Instead of telling Michael that I was feeling restless, unfulfilled, disconnected, I had withdrawn. Instead of working on my marriage, I had looked outside it. Instead of being vulnerable with my husband, I had sought validation from a stranger. You made terrible choices, Dr. Chin said one day, her voice gentle but firm. There's no way around that. But those choices don't have to define the rest of your life. You can learn from them. You can grow. You can become someone different, not because you're running from who you were, but because you've done the work to understand her and move beyond her. But how do I live with what I did? I asked. How do I look at myself in the mirror? By accepting that you are human. Humans make mistakes, sometimes catastrophic mistakes. The question isn't whether you can undo the past. You can't. The question is what you do with the future. It was the hardest work I had ever done. Harder than childbirth, harder than grief, harder than watching Marcus walk out of my life. But slowly, session by session, I began to put myself back together. Not the same Jennifer I had been before. She was gone forever. But someone new, someone wiser, humbler, more aware of her own capacity for self-destruction. Chapter 26, Rebuilding. The invitation came as a complete surprise. It was Emma's 9th birthday, and Michael was throwing her a party at their house. The kids had been talking about it for weeks, the princess theme, the bounce house, the special cake shaped like a castle. I had assumed I would take Emma for a separate celebration on my weekend, the way we always did. But then the invitation arrived in the mail, addressed to me, in Sarah's handwriting. Dear Jennifer, Emma wants you to be at her birthday party. She's been asking for weeks. Michael and I talked about it, and we think it's a good idea. If you're comfortable, we'd love to have you join us. For Emma's sake, Sarah. I stared at the note and tears welled up in my eyes. It was the kindest gesture I had ever received. I stared at that note for a long time. Then I cried. Then I called Dr. Chen. What do you want to do? She asked. I want to be there, I said. I want to see my daughter blow out her candles. I want to be part of her life, not just a visitor on the edges of it. Then go. But what if it's too hard? What if I see Michael and Sarah together and I fall apart? What if I ruin Emma's party? Those are valid fears, Dr. Chen acknowledged. But consider this. What message does it send to Emma if you're not there? What does it tell her about your commitment to her? She was right. Of course she was right. The party was harder than I expected and easier than I feared. Walking into what used to be my house, seeing the furniture rearranged, the new photos on the walls, photos of Sarah and Michael's wedding, of the family I was no longer part of, felt like being stabbed with 1,000 tiny needles. But then Emma saw me. "Mommy," she shrieked, launching herself into my arms. "You came! Daddy said you might come, and you did!" I held her tight, breathing in the strawberry scent of her shampoo, feeling her small heart beating against mine. I wouldn't miss it for the world, baby girl, I whispered. Happy birthday. Michael greeted me with a cautious smile and a firm handshake. Thanks for coming, he said. It means a lot to Emma. Thanks for inviting me, I replied. I know it couldn't have been easy. It was Sarah's idea, he admitted. She thought it was the right thing to do for the kids. I looked across the yard to where Sarah was organizing games for the children, her pregnant belly round beneath a flowing summer dress. She caught my eye and gave me a small wave. I waved back. Maybe we would never be friends. Maybe there would always be too much history, too much pain between us. But in that moment, I felt something shift. Not forgiveness exactly. I wasn't sure I had earned that, but a kind of peace, an acceptance that this was my life now, that I could either fight against it forever or find a way to exist within it. I chose to exist. I stayed for the whole party. I watched Emma open her presents, helped serve cake, even had a brief conversation with some of the other moms, women who had once been my friends, who had dropped me after the divorce like a contagious disease. They were polite, if distant. It was more than I deserved. When it was time to sing happy birthday, I stood beside Michael and Sarah, my voice joining theirs as Emma beamed at us over her princess cake. And for a moment, just a moment, it almost felt like we were a family again. Not the family I had destroyed, something different, something new and complicated and imperfect, but a family nonetheless. Chapter 27, The Apology. I had been putting it off for 3 years, the conversation I needed to have with Michael. The apology I owed him. Not the surface apology I had given during the divorce proceedings, the I'm sorry things didn't work out, that was really just a formality, but a real apology. The kind where you look someone in the eyes and take full responsibility for what you did. I asked to meet him for coffee, just the two of us. He agreed, though I could hear the wariness in his voice. We met at a quiet cafe near his office, a place we used to go on lunch dates back when we were young and in love and thought we had forever. The irony wasn't lost on me. Michael arrived first. He looked good, better than I remembered. The weight of our marriage had lifted from him, replaced by something lighter. He was happy, I realized, genuinely happy, and I was glad for him, even as it broke my heart a little. Thanks for meeting me, I said, sliding into the seat across from him. Of course, he replied. Is everything okay? Are the kids? The kids are fine, I assured him quickly. This isn't about them. This is about us, about what I did. I know it's been 3 years, but I need to say some things I should have said a long time ago. Michael was quiet, waiting. I took a deep breath. I had an affair. You probably knew that, figured it out somewhere along the way, but I never admitted it to you. I never looked you in the eyes and told you the truth. So I'm telling you now. I had an affair with a man named Marcus. I met him at a mall, and I let him into my life, and I used it as an excuse to blow up everything we had built together. Michael's face was still, unreadable. I know, he said simply. I lied to you, I continued, my voice trembling. I told you I didn't love you anymore, that maybe I never had. That was a lie, the biggest lie I've ever told. I did love you, Michael. I loved you more than I knew how to say. But I was broken in ways I didn't understand. And instead of doing the work to fix myself, I destroyed our family. Tears were streaming down my face now, but I kept going. I needed to get it all out. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. What I did was unforgivable. I betrayed you, traumatized our children, threw away a good man for a lie. I have to live with that every day for the rest of my life. But I needed you to know, that I understand what I did, that I take full responsibility for all of it." Michael was silent for a long moment. Then he reached across the table and took my hand. "I forgave you a long time ago, Jennifer," he said quietly. "Not for your sake, for mine, and for the kids. Holding on to anger was destroying me. I had to let it go." I shook my head. "I don't deserve your forgiveness." "Maybe not," he agreed. "But that's not really how forgiveness works, is it? It's not about deserving. It's about releasing. I released you a long time ago. Maybe it's time you released yourself." We sat in silence for a while. Two people who had once promised to love each other forever, now bound only by 3 children and a shared history of pain. "For what it's worth," I finally said, "I'm happy you found Sarah. She's good for you, and she's good to our kids." "She is," Michael agreed. "I'm lucky to have found her." He paused. "And Jenny, I hope you find someone too. Someone who makes you happy. You deserve that." "I'm not sure I deserve anything." "That's not for you to decide," Michael replied. "That's up to whoever shows up. Just be ready for them. Be better for them than you were for me." It was the kindest thing he could have said, and the most painful. Chapter 28. A New Beginning. It's been 4 years now since I walked out on my marriage. 4 years since I destroyed my family for a fantasy that evaporated the moment I tried to hold it. I've learned a lot in those 4 years. I've learned that happiness isn't something you find, it's something you cultivate. That contentment isn't settling, it's succeeding. That the grass isn't greener on the other side, it's greener where you water it. I've learned that children are resilient, but they're not invincible. That the wounds we inflict on them may heal, but they leave scars. That every day spent away from them is a day I can never get back. I've learned that forgiveness is a process, not an event. That healing isn't linear. That some days are harder than others, and that's okay. I've learned that I am stronger than I thought I was, that I can survive things I never thought I could, that rock bottom is not the end of the story. It's just the foundation on which you build a new one. My children are doing well considering everything they've been through. Ethan is in high school now, talking about colleges and careers and futures I hope I'll be part of. Lucas has finally emerged from his shell, making friends, playing sports, laughing in a way that makes my heart swell. And Emma, my sweet Emma, still clings to me when we're together, but now it feels like love rather than fear. I see them regularly, not as often as I'd like, but more than I deserve. We're building something new, my children and I. Not the relationship we would have had if I had stayed, that's gone forever, but something different, something honest about what happened and hopeful about what can be. Michael and Sarah had their baby, a beautiful girl named Grace, who has her father's eyes and her mother's smile. My children have a half-sister now, and they adore her. When I see pictures of them together, I feel a complicated mix of joy and grief. Joy that my children have more love in their lives. Grief that I'm not the one giving it to them. But I've stopped punishing myself for my choices. Dr. Chen helped me see that self-flagellation isn't the same as accountability. I can acknowledge what I did, take responsibility for it, learn from it, and still allow myself to move forward. Staying stuck in shame doesn't help anyone, least of all my children. I'm dating again. Nothing serious, but I'm open to the possibility in a way I wasn't before. I've learned so much about what I need, what I can offer, what love actually looks like beyond the initial rush. If I'm lucky enough to find someone, I'll be a better partner than I was to Michael. I'll communicate instead of withdraw. I'll work on problems instead of running from them. I'll choose them every day, not just when it's easy. And if I don't find someone, that's okay too. I've learned to be alone without being lonely. I've built a life that's small but meaningful. Good friends, satisfying work, ongoing therapy, regular time with my children. It's not the life I imagined when I was 23 years old, standing at that altar in my white dress, but it's a life, and I'm grateful for it. Chapter 29. A letter to women who are reading this. Jennifer's final words. If you've made it this far, thank you. Thank you for taking the time to read my story, to witness my failures and my slow, painful attempts at redemption. I didn't share this for sympathy or absolution. I shared it because I believe stories have power. Because I believe my mistakes, terrible as they were, can serve as a warning to someone who is standing where I once stood. So this is my letter to you, to every woman who is reading this and seeing herself in my words, to every wife who feels unseen, every mother who feels overwhelmed, every woman who has been tempted to look outside her marriage for the fulfillment she thinks is missing inside it. Please learn from me. That man who makes you feel special, he doesn't really know you. He knows a version of you, the flirtatious, available, uncomplicated version. He doesn't know you at 3 a.m. with a crying child. He doesn't know you during a fight about money or in-laws or whose turn it is to take out the trash. He doesn't know the real you because the real you lives in the mundane details of daily life, not in stolen hours at hotels. Your husband might seem boring compared to this exciting stranger, but boring is often just another word for reliable, for present, for committed. Your husband chose you. He keeps choosing you every day, even when it's hard, even when you're not the flirtatious, exciting version of yourself. That's not boring. That's love. If something is missing in your marriage, name it, talk about it, go to therapy together, fight for what you have instead of looking for something new. Because I promise you, the temporary excitement of an affair is nothing compared to the lasting devastation of a destroyed family. I lost everything: my husband, my home, my self-respect. My children look at me differently than they would have if I had stayed. I missed years of their lives, bedtime routines and school mornings and casual Tuesday dinners that I can never get back. The man I left for was a liar who discarded me the moment the chase was over. And now I'm 39 years old, living in a small apartment, haunted by memories of a life I threw away with my own 2 hands. Is that what you want? Because that's where the road you're considering leads. I'm not saying your feelings aren't valid. I'm not saying you don't have legitimate problems in your marriage, but I am saying that burning down your house is not the solution to a drafty window. There are other options, better options, options that don't leave your children traumatized and your future in ashes. Choose your husband. Choose him every day, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. Talk to him, work with him, fight for him the way you would want him to fight for you. And if you've already made the choice I made, if you're already living in the aftermath of your own destruction, know that there is still hope, that redemption is possible, even from the deepest pits, that you can rebuild, even from rubble. It will be hard. It will take years, but it can be done. I am living proof that we can survive our own worst choices, that we can learn from them, grow from them, become better because of them, that rock bottom is not the end of the story. But I am also living proof of the cost, of the scars that never fully fade, of the regrets that visit in the quiet hours of the night. Please, Don't become another cautionary tale. Choose the life you have. Water your own grass. And thank God every day for a husband who loves you, children who need you, and a home that's worth protecting. Because I promise you from the bottom of my broken heart, there is nothing out here worth what you would lose. Nothing at all. With all my love and all my regret, Jennifer Matthews. A letter from a divorced woman to the women still in marriage. Epilogue. 5 years later. The morning sun streamed through the windows of my new apartment, bigger now, in a better neighborhood, with room for the kids when they visit. I stood at the kitchen counter, making coffee, listening to the birds outside. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma, now 13 years old. "Can't wait to see you this weekend, Mom. I have so much to tell you about the school play." I smiled, typing back a string of heart emojis that she would probably find embarrassing but secretly love. Another text came in, this one from Ethan, now 17 and preparing for college. "Hey Mom, got accepted to University of Washington, full scholarship. Wanted you to be the first to know." Tears sprang to my eyes. I called him immediately. "Ethan, that's amazing. I'm so proud of you." "Thanks, Mom." His voice was warm, easy, so different from the cold silences of those early years. "I couldn't have done it without you. You know, the conversations we've had, the way you've pushed me to believe in myself, it mattered." "I love you so much," I said, my voice breaking. "Love you too, Mom. See you Saturday? I'll be there." After we hung up, I stood in my kitchen and cried. Not tears of grief this time, but tears of gratitude. For second chances, for children who chose to forgive, for the long, hard road of healing that had brought me here. I'm 44 years old now. I've been divorced for 8 years. I've made peace with Michael and built a cordial relationship with Sarah. I've watched my children grow into remarkable young people despite the trauma I inflicted on them. I found work that matters, friendships that sustain me, a therapist who helps me navigate the complicated landscape of my emotions. And last year, I met someone. His name is David. He's a widower with 2 grown children, a high school teacher who coaches a debate team and volunteers at the local food bank. He's kind, patient, and unflashy. All the things I used to find boring before I learned what those qualities actually mean. We're taking it slow. After everything I've been through, I'm not rushing into anything. But for the first time in years, I can imagine a future with someone. A real future, built on honesty and communication and choosing each other every day. I don't know what comes next. I've learned that life rarely follows the scripts we write for it. But I know this. I am not the woman who walked out of her marriage 8 years ago. I've done the work. I've faced my demons. I've grown in ways I never thought possible. The story doesn't end with the mistakes. It ends with what we do after we make them. And I'm still writing mine. This story is dedicated to every woman who has stood at the crossroads I once faced. May you choose wisely. May you choose love. May you choose to stay. And if you've already chosen wrong, as I did, may you find the courage to rebuild, to heal, to become someone better than you were before. It's never too late to begin again. Jennifer. The end.